Hello, my name is Matt Duncan. I am a science fiction and fantasy novelist. And today I am answering some questions that I have received from some other independent authors and some wannabe authors who want some insight based on my experience of writing and publishing. So I'm going to go ahead and try to answer these questions, and I'm recording them today so that I can share the answers with everybody. A lot of times I get the same questions over and over again, so this is an opportunity to kind of answer everybody's questions at once. Little disclaimer here. I am a professional novelist, but I don't really count myself as a expert. The only thing I ever try to sell are my novels. I don't have a self help book or a class or anything like that. So there's no sales pitch beyond this front page that has some of the covers of my novels on it. And I will continue to make these recordings and answer people's questions so long as I receive questions from people. When people stop asking the questions, I'll stop posting these. So here we go. The first question. Number one, is it generally a bad idea to reveal your main character as actually being the villain at the end of your book? I mean, if you could pull it off without letting the reader know until the end, would it be met with backlash or would people like it? So, that really depends on the story and how invested your audience is in your character. So go into the book and say, is the story itself strong enough to support everything regardless of the main character's intent? Sometimes this works really well. Sometimes you do get backlash from the readers. It's not going to work very well if you plan on writing a series with this character, unless it's a character that is an anti-hero, or it's a character that is going to reveal something that is negative but it's more of a shade of gray rather than black and white. So in the end, you'd have to think about, does it support the story? Some people just want to write one book, one and done. Some people don't care if it sells a million copies or not, and that's okay. This is your story. You can write whatever story you want to write, and sometimes you just have to go where the story takes you. But if you're thinking about marketing the book and you're thinking about continuing on and writing more books, then you really want to think about the audience and how well received the story is going to be received by your audience. Sorry, that's a kind of a circular sentence. I apologize for that. But if your audience feels betrayed or they feel that you have tricked them, then they're less likely to go buy your next book. So if that is an important consideration for you, then I would consider not making your hero the villain unless the story really, really calls for it. And if it does, then go for it. Uh, there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to this. You just have to think about, if you were the reader, would it encourage you or discourage you from buying that author's next book? And the next question here. Question number two. Why do people go out of their way in fiction to bully people who have or are rumored to have powers? So I'm assuming this question comes from, the comic book hero type genre, fantasy. This can go into sci-fi, it can go into fantasy, but this is a common theme throughout a lot of comic books. Like you have most common one where this fits into is the mutants, where society just vilifies the mutants because they're different. And that's actually a very common theme, and it's very easy for writers to work with. We as people always have something in our life, some time period where we feel like somebody didn't like us, where we feel like the world was against us, where we feel like we are not perfect and somebody else goes out of the way to make us feel bad, to put us down, to belittle us. Um, that happens to everybody, and everybody can identify with that feeling. So when you give your characters that environment, when your characters are oppressed or put down or belittled or even hunted or made to feel like a pariah in their own society, we can all identify with that in some way. We may not have all experienced that in the extremes, but we all can certainly understand what it's like to be put down and to have to fight to earn respect or to get people to like us. So our heroes go through that. Now, by doing this with our heroes like Batman or Superman or the mutants or anybody, when they turn around and use their powers to save others or save the world or to defeat a villain, we root for them because they are somebody that we have found something in common with. And if we can identify with the character, we're going to cheer for the character. If we can't identify with the character, then we really don't care that much if they succeed or fail. So comic book writers have known that for years, and they use that. Tragedy. Tragedy is also another thing that hits most of our heroes, and overcoming tragedy, overcoming adversity, all these things make us cheer for them. So I hope that clarifies that question. And question number 3: what is the psychology behind writing procrastination? And the person writes, I think I'm going to slap myself today. Well, there is actually psychology behind that, and it has to do with left brain versus right brain. We are trained in our society to focus with our logic side. So when we're in school and we're being taught how to read, how to write, how to do math, how to do science, how to do philosophy, how to do politics, how to do everything, it really is focusing on understanding the facts, the figures, memorizing the dates, memorizing names, regurgitating information. And all of that's your logic side of your brain. Whereas your creative side isn't really taught to focus. When we go into our classes in school on the creative side, be it art class or choir, theater, ceramics, uh, it's very much do what feels right, figure it out. Sometimes you're going along with the group. In choir, you've got to sing along with everybody else. In theater, you've got to follow a script. But when you actually get to do something creative, when you actually do creative writing, do painting, write your own song, make up your own scene in theater, it's great that we teach that, but it's not taught as a discipline. It's taught as an activity. So now you're trying to sit down and write a book from beginning to end. And your inspiration is great, and you write as long as you have the inspiration, but it becomes work. It becomes you're trying to hit a deadline, and you're trying to get X number of words out, and you're trying to get to the end of the chapter. And your logic side is taking over and your creative side is being pushed back. So you sit down and you're trying to force yourself to be creative. And it's hard. And it's just not a discipline that we've been taught. It's an activity. It's something that just we allow to happen. So, how do we get past procrastination in writing? Well, sometimes it's just sitting down, turning on your computer, or opening up the blank book, or putting the piece of paper down on the table and putting the pen in the hand and just say, okay, go. But it doesn't always work. Matter of fact, more often than not, that doesn't work, but it's the first step. It's just putting yourself there and trying to work. Um, for myself, sometimes I did better when writing was an escape for me. When I was working at jobs where I had only had time to work before work, after work, on breaks, on my lunch hour, and writing was an escape from work, and I could kind of shut people out around me and focus on what I want to focus on, and I was allowed to be creative. Whereas having a day off and having a quiet room to work in and sitting down and sitting in front of the computer didn't always come out. Sometimes I felt like I needed to be distracted in order to be creative. So there are different things that work for different people. Um, One writer said he takes 4 to 5 showers a day because he's most creative in the shower. And there's something about that activity where there's the solitude to it, but it's an active activity. He's not in front of the computer, but he's allowed to just let his mind wander. And this particular activity is where he's the most creative. For other people, it's going for a walk. Some people, it's sitting down with a pet and talking out their idea with their pet. For some people, it's getting up in the middle of the night and working when the world is not going to interrupt them. For other people, it's going to a loud coffee shop and sitting down where there's 20 to 30 people around you, all having conversations, all doing other things, but completely ignoring you. And, working in that loud, obnoxious environment, but the mentally tuning them out allows the creative side to come out. So it really is finding what works best for you and trying to make that work. And, for some people, that evolves. What works for you this week may not work for you that well next week. Um, Sometimes you have to try different things. Sometimes you have to go back to things you tried before that didn't work and try them again. And sometimes you just need to walk away for a while, go do something else, and then come back and see if the creativity comes back to you. So, writer's block is a tough hurdle for everybody. Not everybody gets over it. But really, the only time you fail is when you decide to quit. So long as you decide to keep trying, you have not failed. Okay. Well, those are the questions that I have for today. This is the only marketing I'm doing here. These are some of my books you see on the screen. You can go to my website, and my website is MatthewODuncan.com. And you can contact me if you have any questions that you would like me to answer on these videos. You can email me at author Matthew O. Duncan at gmail.com. Again, that's author Matthew O. Duncan at gmail.com. Well, I hope you found this beneficial, and I look forward to seeing your questions. and I will do my best to try to post these videos once a week. Thank you so much. Have a great week.